All right, we are learning today. First of all, is the Rebbe's birthday. The Rebbe goes into his 123rd year, celebrating his 122nd birthday. It's a big day by Hasidim. Yud Alf Nisan was always a very auspicious day, and so we want to wish the Rebbe happy birthday. So we're learning a parish. We're learning a sicha. What's
Happy
that?
birthday. Happy birthday.
We're learning a sicha on Parshas Mitzora, like this year, Shabbos Hagadol, and also Yud Beis Nisan. Yud Beis Nisan is today is Yud Alf Nisan, so tomorrow is Yud Beis Nisan, in the year Tavshin Lamed, 1970. So the Farbrengen starts, Kvoi Kiddush Adam Shlita Kiddush Al Yain. The Rebbe came in and made Kiddush on the wine. And Siva Lenagin, V'Omer Maimer Divra Maskal Chodesh Zelechem. He asked, hold on, I just want to make sure I sent out the email on the class. Give me 1 second.
I thought it was a text, not an email.
Yeah, I sent some people on the email list who don't have WhatsApp. Hold on, let me see. Yes, it went out. Okay. So the Rebbe is like this: with regard to the name of this week, which is known as Shabbos Hagadol, the Great Shabbos. Kasev Rabbeinu Azakim Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch, the code of the Jewish law. B'siman shikoteres minug Shabbos Hagadol. The subject of the chapter is the laws or the customs of Shabbos Hagadol. What is the law? What is the custom? What are the customs? That Shabbos Shofnei Pesach, the Shabbos before Pesach. Hi, Lauren. Karnaisa Shabbos Hagadol is known as Shabbos Hagadol. Why? A big miracle happened on Shabbos Hagadol, meaning in the times of the leaving of Egypt. Kalashon Torah, and should be in these days too. As the Torah brings down, Torah is one of the founding fathers of the code of the Jewish law. So the Torah wrote the 4 Turim. Based on that, the Beis Yosef wrote the Shulchan Aruch. Is v'cheinu b'tosis v'shem medrash, also Tosfos Rishon commentary on the Talmud brings down, hey Howard, on in the name of the Medrash. V'loi kalashon Beis Yosef, not like the Beis Yosef, shenasa b'nestam, that it just was a regular miracle. So the Beis Yosef writes that Shabbos Hagadol was a miracle. And the Alter Rebbe quotes from the Tur and from the Tosfos that it was Neis Gadol, a great miracle. This goes according to what is known. When the Alter Rebbe authored the Shulchan Aruch Shelo of his, the Alter Rebbe doesn't just write the laws, but he also gives in the depth of the laws, or the depth of the subject. As he writes in his preface to the Shulchan Aruch. Therefore, he doesn't say just that on Shabbos Hagadol was a miracle, but to give it depth, he says it was a great miracle. And that's the reason why the Shabbos is called the Great Shabbos. So in the whole year, there's one Shabbos known as the Great Shabbos, and that's this Shabbos. Always the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos Hagadol. Doesn't always fall out in Parshas Mitzora. Ki'im mishum, because if the day was just a regular miracle, we could have called it the Shabbos of miracles. The fact that it happened that there was a great miracle is why the Shabbos is called Shabbos Hagadol. And now the Alter Rebbe continues to explain what was the great miracle that happened in the times of Egypt, that the Shabbos is called the Great Shabbos. The law was that the Jewish people were told by Moshe that on the 10th of the day of the month of Nisan, which was 5 days prior to leaving Egypt, they're each supposed to take for themselves or for their family a sheep to be sacrificed on the 14th as this Paschal lamb. So they took it 4 days earlier. That's something that was only unique to the first Pesach. It means it's not something that's required. For instance, right now is the 11th. Mashiach is going to come, and we're going to be able to do Korban Pesach this year. It's not going to be a requirement to have had the sheep ready from the 10th. And that day turned out to be Shabbos. So the Shabbos that year was the 10th. Like it's brought down, the Rebbe says in the Maimer discourse. And when the Jewish people took their Paschal lambs on Shabbos, It's kapsu b'chayre u'masailam, all the firstborn of the nations. It doesn't say the mitzrim of the nations. Eitzu Yisrael v'shalu lamazeh meisim kach. They asked the Jewish people, "Why are you taking sheeps?" By that time already, everything that was happening around the Jewish people was fascinating, right? There was already 9 plagues. Moshe was the Torah tells us by this point, Moshe is one of the most important people, or the most important person in Egypt. Everyone is honoring Moshe. The Jewish people are no longer slaves at that point. The slavery was abolished, but they haven't been freed yet. So everything that was happening in the Jewish people, all the Egyptians and the nations were fascinated. And here they see that all the Jews are taking sheeps. And they said, "What's going on?" Amr lahem, so they said, the Jewish people answered to the Gentiles, that Pesachul Hashem, we're about to do a Pesach Lamb. And what's going to happen? What's so unique about what's going to happen? So the Jewish people told them, straight to their face, God is going to kill all the firstborn of Egypt. This was the final plague. The Jewish people told. Now we don't know necessarily that every time Moshe Rabbeinu warned Paro and his staff, did they advertise that I just got a warning from Moshe that the firstborn will be killed, or that X, Y, and Z should happen? And here Moshe, before the plague of darkness, Moshe warned Paro that the final plague will be the death of the firstborn, but we don't know necessarily that the firstborn themselves found out about that. So what happens? So the firstborn are listening to Moshe, to the Jewish people, saying, "Why are we taking Passover lamb? Because we're about to be freed, and before we're freed, all the firstborn will die." So what do you think the firstborn did? The firstborns went home to their family and to Pharaoh himself. They said, "What's going on over here? Don't you guys realize what's happening? The whole system is collapsed. And now the next thing is God is about to kill the firstborn. What are you doing? Let the Jews out." And Pharaoh said, "No, I'm not letting the Jews out." And the fathers also didn't let. So they started a civil war. The firstborns of Egypt started to fight. He said, "What are you doing? Well, the country's lost already, right? The Egyptians already, the advisors already told Paro, Egypt is lost. So save what you can." And here he doesn't. He's holding stubborn. He doesn't want the Jews out. So the firstborn started a civil war. And there was a lot of deaths on both sides. And this is what we say in our prayer every Shabbos from Tehillim, that there was a fighting of Egypt. The Egypt were struck by their firstborn. This is the reason that's brought down in the Beis Yosef, in the name of Tosfos, in the name of Medrash, not the same reason that's brought down in the Torah. Now the Rebbe analyzes the question, the story of Shabbos Hagadol. Why is this a big miracle? There were many miracles at that point. Water to blood, frogs, lice, death of animals, all that. And why was this unique to be called a great miracle that the Egyptians who were told that they're about to be killed started a civil war? That's a normal reaction. Why is this called a great miracle? Page 42. What's the reason? And why is this such a great miracle that every Shabbos before Pesach we call it Shabbos Hagadol? Also, it's not connected. These are famous questions. It's also not connected to Shabbos. It happened on the 10th of Nisan. It happened to be the 10th of Nisan was Shabbos. God told Moshe, tell the Jewish people that on the 10th of Nisan, take a cow. It didn't say on the Shabbos before Pesach, take a cow. So it had nothing to do with Shabbos. It was unique to the 10th of Nisan. It could have happened that the 10th of Nisan wouldn't be on Shabbos. And it only worked out that year Shabbos was. But technically the law was about the 10th, not about Shabbos. It should be called the great day on the 10th of Nisan. Why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? It's not about Shabbos, it's about the miracle. And it happened to be that the miracle fell out on Shabbos. Maybe we could understand by asking another general question. Why is only the day that he took the lamb called the great day, the great Shabbos? The miracle really was for the full four days. all those 4 days, the Egyptians are wondering why the Jewish people have sheep tied to their beds. So that whole unit of time of 4 days should have been a unit of the time of a great miracle. It should have been known as great days. All those days were a miracle. That the Egyptians started a war. It doesn't say the war was isolated to that day. Based on the reason that the Torah brings. Each person took a sheep and tied it to their for the sheep and tied it to the foot of their bed. And the Egyptians asked, what's going on? Because we're about to slaughter this for the Paschal lamb. And the second miracle, this is what the miracle that we said, that there was a war between the Egyptian firstborn and the army and Pharaoh and all that, was because the firstborn were told they were going to be killed. The Torah brings a second reason, that all Egyptians were upset. Why? Because the lambs were a deity in Egypt. So by the Jews saying they're about to slaughter their lamb, it was like they're destroying their deity, their idol. And they couldn't do anything because the Jewish people were powerful then. And they were very upset that the Jewish people are about to slaughter their deity. And that's the miracle, that they just stood there and they couldn't do anything. So one of the reasons why we call it Shabbos Hagadol, and we don't focus on the days, meaning the 10th to the 14th, is nice of Altir to Beis Yosef, aside from the answer that the Beis Yosef gives. Sheikar Nes Haya, Baschola, Shaz Haya Ikar, Kihuni Shinya Mitzrim. The Beis Yosef says because in the beginning was really when it hit them. The rest of the days were just, an afterthought. After the first day, the dasha, once it happened, it happened. It's always the beginning that's difficult. The first time is difficult. Because also when the Egyptians saw, they didn't say when they're slaughtering it. They said, we're going to slaughter your deity. But after the first day, they saw that they haven't slaughtered it yet, like we know now, right? When people have warnings that things are about to happen. So if it doesn't happen in the first few hours, everyone says, okay, whatever, it won't happen. Okay? So therefore, the Egyptians weren't so nervous after the first day. Maybe they thought the Jewish people had second thoughts. Even though they said they're going to, as I said, the Shem Pesach, they said they're going to slaughter the sheep. Just like a Gentile sometimes knows, he says things that aren't exactly accurate. Maybe the Jewish people are also just saying things that they don't mean it. They're taunting each other. And Shabbos, the Jewish, in the beginning, the Egyptian thought it was true. That they're about to slaughter their deities. And the reason why the first day they thought it's true, and the only reason they're not slaughtering it is because it's Shabbos. And on Shabbos they're not allowed to slaughter, so they thought they're going to slaughter it first thing Sunday morning or Saturday night. When they didn't do it on Saturday night, they thought whatever the moment passed. Comes out that the only reason why the Egyptians were nervous and they couldn't say anything, was connected to Shabbos. Why connected to Shabbos? Because they thought that the Jewish people weren't slaughtering their sheep on Shabbos, but as soon as the week comes, they would slaughter it. Because on the weekdays, the Egyptians weren't so nervous anymore. They didn't believe. So the Beis Yosef answers, one answer, the reason why it's called Shabbos Hagadol is because it is connected to the idea of Shabbos, because the Egyptians were very nervous the first day the Jewish people took the sheep, thinking that the only reason the Jewish people are not slaughtering the sheep right now is because it's Shabbos. So the Shabbos part of it kept them tense, because they thought it's going to happen right after Shabbos. When it didn't happen after Shabbos, they were no longer concerned. But the Rebbe says, that's only one reason. That's only according to the opinion that says that the miracle is connected to the slaughtering, not to the civil war. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring that reason. The Alter Rebbe brings the reason. This was a day that the firstborn of Egypt went to civil war with the Egyptians. First of all, there's no question about the other days. because the fighting happened on Shabbos. On the first day, on Shabbos. And the other days, possibly the war only lasted for a day. They saw that what happened was the firstborn went and started to riot and make chaos in Egypt, but when they saw they weren't effective, that Pari didn't care. So so they put down their arms. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe doesn't bring down the second answer. That the reason the miracle was that the Egyptians were angry, that they thought the Jewish people would slaughter their deity, and they couldn't tell them anything about it because they didn't have any power to fight the Jews. Because then we should have called all those days as great days. Okay. Therefore, again, so the fact that back to our original question, why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? The fact that there was a battle between the firstborn and the Egyptians has to do with the day of the 10th, not with Shabbos. What's called Shabbos Hagadol? The great thing is about the miracle, not about the Shabbos. Okay, so the Rebbe is going to explain. Why is this? We have two questions. The first question is, why is it called a great miracle? It's a miracle. I mean, it's not. Would you say that it's a great miracle when someone finds out they're about to be murdered, they're about to be killed by God as a punishment for enslaving the Jewish people, that they get restless and they start fighting? That's not a great miracle. I mean, that's almost a normal reaction. I wouldn't count it as one of the greatest miracles that were happening in the time. Turning water to blood, or frogs, or lice, or all that, maybe possibly boils, and all that, maybe darkness could be greater miracles than a person finding out he's about to die, then he gets restless. So the Rebbe, and the second question is, why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? It had to do with the 10th day, not with the Shabbos. Okay. So the Rebbe explains, the Jewish people are a people that were accustomed for miracles to happen to us, right? What happened last Saturday night, that all the nations of the Middle East, with America and Europe and Israel together, Eretz Yisrael together, fought in unity to protect Eretz Yisrael against Iran. These are all miracles. But the Jewish people are melumad b'nisim. We're a people. Melumad b'nisim means that we're a people that are accustomed to miracles. Miracles is part of our DNA. Because by Jewish people, it's constantly miracles, Baruch Hashem, are happening to us as individuals and as Jewish people. As the Talmud teaches us, what does it mean? That God does great wonders levadoi. That so many miracles are happening to the Jewish people that sometimes the miracle themselves, the person who's experiencing the miracle doesn't even know a miracle's happening. There's miracles happening the whole time. We just don't always recognize them. The point isn't that there's no miracles. The point is we just don't recognize the miracles. We have no recognition. And the Rebbe says, what does it mean recognize? Recognize doesn't just mean that you're not informed. The word recognize, makir, means to pay attention. I mean, sometimes we have miracles that we know we have miracles. Or we know that something is not right. It seems wondrous. Why did things happen the way they turned out in a positive way? So we say it's a miracle, but we don't attribute it to miracles. Or we don't want to concentrate and focus on the miracle. The word makir b'nisei means to pay attention that there's a miracle. Not just to know that it wasn't like a person who didn't know that he or she was about to step on something that could have hurt him, right? And you keep on walking. You never knew about it. No, things happen. Things work out. You didn't know how you got your job. You didn't want to recognize what this or that, whatever it is that happens. You don't want to pay attention that it's a miracle, but it's happening to us all the time. So Yeshleim v'derech the Rebbe says one could say, the reason why this was a great miracle, because when the Egyptian firstborn came to fight with Pharaoh, aside for the miracle that the Jewish people took the deity of the Egyptians and they didn't do anything, and they told them, we're going to slaughter it. As Moshe said, Moshe is everything about truth. Is said in the true Torah. That's what happened. Moshe asked that you think they could slaughter their deity in front of the Egyptians and they're not going to do anything about it? There's two miracles. The first miracle is actually not that the Egyptians fought. The miracle is that Pharaoh didn't listen to the Egyptians. It doesn't make sense. After 9 plagues, the whole system collapsed. The Jews are not even slaves anymore. It does, and the firstborn are coming and saying that Moshe says that we're all going to die. And Pharaoh himself was a firstborn. Why would he just not let them go? That itself is a miracle. Pay attention, the Rebbe says. We're talking about the 10th plague, which was the most severe. The firstborn are going to die. And Rashi brings down many people died. Why? Because the women were having relations with old men, evidently young men. So therefore, one woman could have had more than one firstborn in the house. The father may have thought, or her husband may have thought, that these were all her kids, but his kids. The truth is they were kids, they were all the neighbors' kids, and each one was a firstborn. So it says that many children died, or people died in the house. It wasn't just the person who thought he was the firstborn, but there were others that were firstborn. The Rebbe says, pay attention. It's the most severe of all the makas. And we find that after the other miracles, Pari was intimidated, and he did initially say you could leave. But only after the fact that Moshe lessened the pressure is only when he went back on his promise. But when the pressure was tight, he said leave. So here the pressure is tight. Why doesn't he just say leave? Is Haya Pari Tzarech Lahaskim and Lakashas B'Chayim Mitzrayim? He should have listened to them, to the firstborn. To send them. They were under the pressure. At that point, there was a pressuring time. So why would he not give in? And when they saw that the firstborn saw that Pari wasn't listening, they made a war. But it was a miracle that Pari didn't let them go. It wasn't right. It's not rational kind of behavior. Even though the firstborn were the ones who thought they were firstborn, were a minority, because every firstborn person who's a firstborn, there's brothers that are not firstborn. The Rebbe says that the firstborn were so angry that Paro wasn't letting the Jewish people go, and their life was at stake, that they were very successful. It was, when both sides are fighting, the Egyptians were passive. They said, we're not letting them go. The firstborn were saying, let them go. So they were so angry, and the miracle was they went and they killed, the minority killed the majority. Were very successful against the majority. But because of those two things, the first miracle is that even though that the Egyptians begged Pharaoh to let them go and he didn't let them go, that's a miracle. And even though they were a minority, and they still killed many of them, that's considered a great miracle. So now the Rebbe defines what's the great miracle. The great miracle was that the story doesn't make sense. So when something when God does a miracle, is you're a bystander. When you're acting crazy, because that's a miracle. Why? Pharaoh's behavior was not logical. There's no rationale to what he was doing. So the miracle was the choices that Pharaoh was making, and the choice and the success that the firstborn had in their battle. So the Shabbos. And now the second question: what about what's the connection to Shabbos? It's not a Shabbos thing. It's the 10th of Nisan story. Shabbos Hagadol. Even Al Pi Rishimus Shal Tzemach Tzedek will understand what the Tzemach Tzedek says. Mizmor Shir Liyam Shabbos, and the verse that says this is the song of Shabbos. So the Rebbe says like this: that the B'Yalkut Isa is brought down in the Medrash. Eishana, we're middle of the talk. The Sicho on page 44, Sif. 5, and the Rebbe is analyzing the miracle of Shabbos Hagadol. The conclusion we're holding until now is that the miracle was that the Egyptians' firstborn were very successful against a majority. They were just a minority. And the second part of the miracle was that Pharaoh didn't let them go. Why wouldn't he let them go? By that point, it totally didn't make sense for Pharaoh to keep holding the Jews. Okay. The Rebbe says now, but the second question that the Rebbe is addressing is, why is it called Shabbos Hagadol? The miracle happened on the 10th. It was a day, it was a month, it was a day of the month idea, not so much a day of the week. And the Shabbos happened to be a technicality that the 10th of the month worked out on Shabbos. So the Rebbe explains like this. B'Yalkut, the second paragraph in Sifhei. B'Yalkut, which is a medrash, Isa says, L'Yom HaShabbos, what does it mean a song on Shabbos? Every other day we say, Hayom Yom Rishon, this is the first day, this is the second day, this is the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day. Today is Shabbos. It doesn't say today is the seventh day. So B'Yalkut is L'Yom HaShabbos V'lei L'Yom HaShvi. It's a song to Shabbos. It's not a song to the number 7, to the seventh day. Shemashbis mazikim min ha'olam shlo yaziku. What does the Yalkut say? Why is it considered a song to Shabbos? Because Shabbos comes from the word mashbis. It makes rest. That it forces a rest on the mazikim and those who cause damage to the world that they shouldn't cause damage on Shabbos. The mazikim. Now mazikim is a fully loaded title. You could call them mazik. Any person wants to hurt the next person, but traditionally when we say mazikim, it's dealing with kind of ruachs, spirits, or shadim or demons that it's not something we could really fight against, and not something that we're empowered to really deal with. Besides the great righteous people who've dealt with the demons and spirits, so the mazikim don't do damage on Shabbos. The Gemara, I think, says that if a human being saw what an animal saw, we would go crazy, because around us if we think you're sitting alone in your kitchen having a coffee in the morning, you're having a quiet moment, you don't know, there could be a demon sitting right next to you. So he says like this, so the Rebbe says like this, the idea is not the hashbis the gamish la yiklal, that Shabbos doesn't cause that there should no longer be damaging spirits. Kim shlo yaziku, they're there, but they don't do damage. That's the idea of transformation. So the Tzemach Tzedek says that's the concept of transformation. That what does it mean to transform something? That it's there, but it doesn't do damage. It's no longer a damaging force. The Rebbe says we once explained in length, both in the revealed and the hidden parts of Torah. About the two opinions. What does it mean that on Shabbos the damaging spirits rest? Like it says, I'm going to make rest the evil animals from the wild animals from the world. And we're to get rid of, really. That's that pasuk is talking about getting rid of. Is ma'avir min oilam, to get rid of them. So one word of the hishpeisi chayra min aretz means to get rid of the evil animals. And ma'avir min oilam, hainu shemitziyusam shel hamazikim tisbatel gamrei. Those forces, let's just call them forces, because it could be it's all inclusive. Maybe the Rebbe is talking about even people or animals, anything that causes damage. Those forces will be nullified. Or is the idea that they should be, it means there's a question. When we say damaging forces will be no longer here, does it mean that they no longer will damage or they won't exist? It's not the same thing. God will make them not be able to do damage. I knew. The damaging forces will be there. But they won't cause damage. Like it says in the times of Mashiach, if God willing will be soon, that traditionally a sheep and a wolf don't get along, right? The wolf is going to eat the sheep. So when Mashiach comes, it doesn't say we're going to get rid of all the wolves. It's just that the wolf won't hurt the sheep. But nar koten noigbam, and the young boy could lead them. The ari kibaka yechel teven, the lion will eat like the cattle will eat straw, wheat, or grains. And there's not going to be any damaging on my holy mountain, meaning Jerusalem. So appropriate to today. This is also connected to all of the promises in the days that are coming. That our enemies will make peace with us. Which is what is that talking about? It's brought down Zanachash. Even the snake, our first enemy, the enemy of Chava and Adam, that caused all the things that went wrong from there. He's the great enemy. Will make peace with Adam and Chava and their descendants. I love Nemer ve'eva ashis bein Aisha. God says there's going to be Eva. Eva means there's going to be a fight, a hate between the snake and evil and the children of this woman of Chava, as it was in the beginning, but the time Mashiach comes, then snake is going to transform and become what he should have been, a great shamish. The idea was, like in every situation, when someone gets a position, sometimes the position itself is damaging, right? If you never been offered anything, so you have no expectations. But the snake was separated from all the other animals. God said to the snake, "You're going to be a shamash gadol. You're going to be a great helper to the human beings, different than all the other animals. Of course, we need the ox to plow, we need the donkey to carry, we need the horses, all that we need. But nothing was like the snake. The snake was going to be a shamash gadol, a great like a VIP service. We're going to have a person helping, a snake helping every person. Would have they talked today about robots. That was the job of the snake. But instead of being happy about that only built up what he wanted more. Why should I be a shamash? Why should I just stand there and help and serve, these people? I should be sitting at the table. Shamash gadol. That's what when Mashiach comes, he's going to accept it. All damaging things. The This is, by the way, a sheet of the Rebbe. The Rebbe always went with the idea that it's not about destruction. We're not looking to destroy anything. We're looking to change things. So therefore, everything Hashem created in the world, nothing was created by waste, right? The most David HaMelech trying to analyze every creation. So it has a purpose, and the purpose has to also be positive. The Rebbe says that the mazikim, damaging forces, even though damaging by definition means to damage, but they will exist, but they will no longer be damaging. They're only help add to holiness. Means their existence can't just be passive either. Means a lion can't just eat grass and mind its business. It has to also be productive, just like an ox is productive. It helps in the plowing. The lion's going to have something to do, but it's just not going to be what he's doing now. They're going to stay in the world. They're going to bring something to holiness. There's going to be no destruction or evil on my holy mountain, because it's going to be holy, so they're going to be doing holy things. How could damaging things be on the holy mountain? Because they're going to be holiness. And we'll see what that means for what's happening now. Question is better, like it's explained. Also, the Rebbe applies this to the question of what does it mean to get rid of the chametz? It's brought down halachically. How do you get rid of the chametz? You got to burn it, right? We all know we burn our chametz. Or you have to spread it out, throw it to the sea. The question is, do you have to burn it so it shouldn't exist, or is it good enough to get rid of its image of the negativity of chametz? Like if you get rid of it, spread it out, it no longer has the measurement of a kazayas of an olive, which makes it forbidden, and then it's no longer damaging. Chametz is only damaging when it can gather as much as an olive, then it means ego and all the negative things that it means. Okay. Never says this as a side point. So when we get rid of the damaging forces, but they're still going to remain, but they're not going to be damaging. They won't damage. That's the benefit of transformation. But if you get rid of them, you haven't changed anything. It means if you get rid of your enemy, if you get rid of negative forces, so you just destroyed it. But what does it mean really? That you're stronger than it. But if you turn negative into positive, so then you've accomplished something. Not just that you got rid of a damaging. I mean, getting rid of a damaging force by destroying it means that it can exist for you to exist. So therefore, you have to get rid of it. Hypothetically, if its existence, while it does damage, doesn't disturb you, you wouldn't bother with it. The only reason you're killing it, destroying it, is because it harms your existence. But if you transform something, it's not that you're not worried. That it's not about that you only want to get rid of it because it's a negative force, but you want to turn it into positivity. If it's causing damage, it means it has energy. Why shouldn't it do that energy in something positive? So therefore, transformation, his hapcha is greater than his kafir, than to destroy it, to get rid of it. So the Rebbe is like this. The Rebbe says the idea like this. The Talmud teaches us, we'll go a little further. Pirsha Pasuk, on the verse that says, Chazayin of Adyo, the prophet of Adyo had a vision. Koyam Hashem Elikim Le'edem. So God said to, it's all again appropriate to our times, so God said to Edom, to Esav, to Rome, my shana oivdei le'edem, oivdei gera doimi, mashna avadi le'edem. So the question is, why does Avadia have to speak to Rome, to Edom? Technically, Edom was his own country. Edom was southeast of Eretz Yisrael, would be parts, I guess, Jordan or maybe Saudi Arabia. Edom was a country. That's where Esav was. Edom's Esav also, when we say this is the Gullus of Edom, it means to say that kind of Esav spread its ways to Rome, which today is looked on as the Western civilization. So Maishna Avadia Edom. So why does Avadia have to prophesy to Edom? Avadia Geradomi, because Avadia was a convert, and he himself was an Adomi. He came from Edom, he converted, and he became a prophet. This is what it says. What does that mean? How do you chop down a forest? You don't hold on to a metal axe. You stick the blade of the axe into a piece of wood, which is itself as part of the tree, and the wood itself knocks down the forest. So the wood is being used against itself. So too, Avadia is an Edomite, therefore he prophesies against Edom. Kemuva Gam Betanya is brought down in a gale the Shvius Nefesh Bahamas Adei his Boinish Mevil de Atzvus. Sha'af Sha'atzvus imitzat Klipas Lega, Le mitzat the Kedusha, Af Bekent Kachu Amidel, Lakfil, Sitrach Binei, Vidugmasa. The Alter brings down in Tanya that when a person wants to break their animalistic soul, so sometimes you contemplate about things of what you've done that could bring to atzvus, that could bring to feeling a little depressed. Even though that atzvus, depression itself, is a negative thing, it comes from a negative place. It doesn't come from holiness. But that's the way sometimes you have to. The animal soul won't respond to positive, won't respond to holiness. If you explain the animal that what it's doing is disruptive to itself, so even though it feels bad about it feels bad about it within itself, but that's the only way to talk to the animal. Everything that's negative, there should be extra that the negative could bring to something positive. Not sure what just happened there. I'm not sure why the thing shut down. I think my computer is having a problem. But let's just finish off. Let's have a few more minutes. Let's just finish off. Zell, this way says, do you hear me? Aaron, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I was on mute.
Oh, okay. Now it's back
I hear
onto
you
my.
beautifully now.
All right, thank you. Hold on. I'm back on the main computer. I'm not. Okay, let's see what's going
When
on.
you go down, we just patiently wait.
Okay, hold on.
Now you're on twice.